Now, a new YouGov poll has found that 7 in 10 people believe Keir Starmer is handling immigration badly.
Yeah, the Prime Minister is under growing pressure from Labour grandees and senior ministers to adopt a more radical approach to the small boats crisis as public concern over the government's handling of the issue intensifies.
Well, joining us now is political commentator Charlie Downs. Now, Keir Starmer, on the face of it, doesn't seem to be doing much about this. Yes, Yvette Cooper is talking about shaking up the appeals process for the asylum system, but do you think it's come, the time has passed for that, really, that it's time for something a bit more radical?
Well, God knows we need radical action in a number of different areas of policy in our country, I think. I think that the project of really Blairism that we have suffered under since 1997 has been shown to be an utter failure. And the system that it has created, the system of government that it has given birth to, is really at the source of so many of the problems that we're facing today. And these polls that have come out today showing the loss of faith in Starmer are very revealing. But what they say is that 7 in 10 Britons think Starmer has failed on illegal immigration. Now, I think from Starmer's perspective, and indeed from the perspective of people like Lord Hermer and various others in the civil service and the kind of the deep state who actually run the country, as against the public-facing element of government that we interact with in the Commons, I think they would say that they're succeeding on illegal immigration because these people are true believers in the doctrine of human rights. I mean, Keir Starmer had a career defending the worst possible people and getting them off of the death penalty and all this sort of thing. And so I think that by enabling people who do not have Britain's best interests at heart, i.e. those crossing the channel illegally, Starmer probably feels like he's doing the right thing. And that's the really dark thing about this, is our system is infested with these people who are possessed by the idea that they are fighting for the downtrodden and for the dispossessed, when actually the people who they are, in fact, dispossessing themselves is ordinary British people. And those are the people who are really beginning to, I think, enter a mode politically and psychologically that this island hasn't known for a very long time. And that is a truly radical mode, a revolutionary mode, in fact.
So is that the issue, Charlie, here, that we seem to be being controlled, or this issue is controlled by unelected and, crucially, unaccountable lawyers who are defending these illegal migrants who come across the channel? From the outsider's perspective, it looks like the government is powerless to stop all of these appeals, although they are trying to speed up the appeals process. But what can be done about these legal challenges that keep on happening? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like the Labour government are really reluctant to do anything about the European Court of Human Rights, for example.
Well, again, Cameron, it's because these people who occupy the positions of authority, elected and unelected, believe in the project. They believe in the ECHR. They believe in the Human Rights Act. They believe in the web of legislation that was created in the wake of the Human Rights Act, which is causing so many of the problems that we have today. Like, for example, the requirement to put up the so-called asylum seekers in hotels and that kind of thing. That's due to a law that was passed in 1998. We have this legislative sort of architecture that's completely out of date, completely inappropriate for the time in which we live. And really all that's required to fix this problem is the political will to do so. And the Labour government certainly doesn't possess that because, once again, they believe in this stuff. They want to see more of this stuff come through. I mean, if you read the Labour manifesto before they were elected, it was full of absolutely bonkers stuff, some of which they've started to bring through, like, for example, 16-year-olds being given the vote. I mean, this is who these people are. Like, when you read them and when you listen to their words, you should believe them. And I don't think they have any interest or desire to meaningfully address the illegal migration problem, as evidenced by this completely ineffectual deal with the French, which will see a one-in, one-out policy. It's certainly not acting as a deterrent because we're still seeing hundreds, thousands of illegal migrants, primarily foreign males, from the most violent regions of the world, like Afghanistan and Eritrea and Sudan, crossing the channel every week. And so I just, when you should watch what the hands are doing and not what the mouth is saying on these issues, because the revealed preference of this government is actually to enable the issue rather than solve it.
And I think it's true to say that actually the one-in, one-out policy, because there's only something like a 1 in 17 chance of actually going back to France, it's being used by people smugglers as advertising. But do you think there is anything now politically that Keir Starmer can do? David Blunkett suggests today in the Times of, senior Labour grandee that this is a sort of crunch moment for Keir Starmer, and that if he doesn't act very quickly, then his authority on this issue is going to slip away altogether. Do you think it's a crunch moment, or are we actually beyond that? Is there anything that Keir Starmer can actually do to save this, or is it going to be a problem for the next Prime Minister?
2 points on that. I mean, in that same article, David Blunkett advocates for digital ID being the problem, the solution to this problem. As it is, for any problem, when you talk to a Blairite, digital ID is their catch-all solution to everything. So it's not surprising that he was advocating for that. I don't think that is the solution, because I don't think that's in keeping with the English tradition of individual liberty. I think that digital ID is a very dangerous precedent to set. It may solve the illegal migration problem, but to be honest, I don't think that the trade-offs are worth it. Now, with regards to Starmer being able to do anything about this, I mean, we're still several years out from a general election, in theory. And I do think there are things that he could do to solve this. Like, for example, at Restore Britain, we have been advocating for the closing of all of the asylum hotels, the arresting of everybody in them, because we know that they are criminals because they've crossed the channel illegally, and detaining them in tented encampments on MOD land until such a time as they can be removed either to a third country or to their home country. And if Starmer was prepared to deploy that kind of policy, then we would see an end to this problem. But he's not going to do that because he basically just doesn't have the stones for it.
Charlie, Reform UK says it's going to be seeking deals with countries like Afghanistan and Eritrea to send people back if they win power. I suppose the issue is, and what we've seen time and time again with the former Conservative government and indeed the current Labour government, is that it's very easy to be in opposition and promise all these things, but actually delivering on it is a whole separate issue.
That's quite true. I mean, once again, it comes down to political will, and it's very encouraging to see Reform adopting our talking points on mass deportations and various other issues, including net negative legal immigration. But to be honest, I mean, I think that their plan, they're laying out the full thing tomorrow, of course, but they've talked about 5 deportation flights a day and facilities to hold 24,000 illegal migrants. That's a drop in the bucket. I mean, research from Reuters in 2017 showed that 1.2 million illegal migrants are currently residing in Britain. So you fast forward 8 years when we've had literally hundreds of thousands cross the channel illegally, which is to say nothing of visa overstayers and various other routes to illegally remain in the country. We looking at millions of people who shouldn't be here, all of whom need to be removed. So whether the parties who are currently in opposition really have a grasp of what's going to be necessary come the next government, when this issue has doubtless gotten a lot worse over the intervening years. I just don't buy it. I think that both Labour is certainly radically behind on this issue, but actually I don't think the Conservatives or Reform are really up to speed either. I mean, we need to be talking here in the order of a fundamental rethink of how we approach politics and government in the era of mass immigration, because technological and communication technologies have advanced at such a rate over the last 30 or so years that politics has been unable to keep pace with it. And it's for that reason that you can see millions of people moving across the globe. And there are those who think that that's a good thing, a beautiful thing, who don't believe in the nation state, who don't believe in borders. But actually, for those of us who want to live in safe, secure, prosperous countries, you need to have a certain degree of, you need to have a huge degree of security of borders, a huge degree of homogeneity in your population, and a government that has the interests of ordinary people at heart.
Thank you very much, Charlie Downs. We'll have to leave it there. It is quite worrying, isn't it? The politicians who can see the scale of the problem are proposing very, very, very expensive solutions, and everyone else doesn't seem to see the scale of it at all. No. But anyway, joining us now to discuss this further is Reform candidate and mum of 3, Sarah White, who has attended lots of the Epping protests. Now, Sarah, who has the answer to this problem? Nigel Farage is coming up with all sorts of new ideas tomorrow. The Conservatives say that actually some of these ideas aren't new at all. They're just rehashing what the Conservatives said. They're also very, very expensive. What do you think?
I think that the problem is our government is actively at war with the people of this country. They're not putting us first. And I just think that somebody needs to have a backbone, whoever it is, to put something in place and follow through with it. We can't be controlled by the ECHR. We have to remove from that immediately, basically. But for some reason, Keir Starmer isn't wanting to do that. And until that is done, we as a country can't do what we need to do to protect our citizens.
The government would probably say to you in response, Sarah, that they've got this one in, one out scheme with the French, where they take an illegal migrant who's come across on a boat back to France in return for somebody who does have a right to be here, and also trying to speed up the appeals process so migrants aren't stuck in hotels like the Bell Hotel in Epping. So what's your response to what the government has done so far?
Well, it's just diabolical, everything that they've done. They aren't doing really much at all, are they? Because if you look at the appeals process, there are people on the appeals process that have been dealing with this for 10 years. Now, that surely isn't fair on them either. I'm not saying that nobody should come to this country, but if you're left in limbo as somebody coming here and wanting to claim asylum, why are they being left on this for 10 years sometimes? And that's just not fair.
Now, you've been to some of these protests that have been happening in Epping. They've been happening across the rest of the country this weekend. Do you think that this perhaps is the beginning of the answer? Ordinary people like you, a mum of 3 who's just worried about your own local community. Do you think these people like this could kind of turn this around? These protests could really make an impact and make the government listen?
I think ultimately the protests have gained such momentum, and you can see they are growing in numbers, like you say. I think there's something like 40 protests over this weekend, and the amount of people coming out, it just proves that if you protest peacefully, you can achieve what you want to, what our end goal was, to get the Bell Hotel shut down. Unfortunately, the Home Office are obviously trying to submit an appeal against that. But I do think the more people show up, that it does cause a problem, because if you look at the amount of police that have to be at the protest, it's not viable. So the police themselves are saying, you know, we're worried now that we can't go and deal with real crime. So surely that puts pressure on. So if we keep up the pressure as protesters, then there is a chain reaction. And then I do believe that something will have to be done.
Sarah, as a mum of 3 yourself, how worried are you about the future of this country for your children?
I'm incredibly worried about the future of this country, and not just for my children, for every single child in this country, because it is a fundamental right to feel safe in your community. And we are seeing at an alarming rate, there are more crimes being committed, more women are being sexually assaulted. And it's not just women that are sexually assaulted, it's young girls as well, because these men land on our shores. And like I've said before, they don't all of a sudden gain the morals of somebody who has lived here, born and bred, and they come from countries where they have an ideology that women aren't even second-class citizens. So how do you expect them to integrate into our community? So my worry is the future generations, 100%.
OK.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Really, really good to hear from you, your perspective as someone who has been attending these protests.